So now we have the Sinfonia from the Christmas Oratorio. This is a 6 pieces cycle for the Christmas cantata. This was the second cantata which opens with a Sinfonia instrument. Sounds like this. Feels like a very humbled shepherd. Remind me like variation 24. This piece was also followed pastoral's tradition, which, as I mentioned, happened many times in Bach's music, including the Goldberg variation. I always love to listen to this style of music. It makes me feel very warm, particularly now we have a holiday coming up. I really wish this beautiful Sinfonia Christmas Oratorio's cantata, which played on the modern piano, will bring you some warmth, family feelings.
It's just, I want to get better. I'll do anything, I just want to get better. And that helps the teacher very much, you know, because it's very, as it is, you know, it's very challenging. Okay, so Jin is from Korea and he went to study in Germany. He's been there for the last 6 years. Studying at the Conservatory Academy. What is it called?
University, Hochschule.
It's a Hochschule, okay. So a university, Conservatory University. And he's had several teachers because his father is a pilot, so every 2 years they moved around.
Yes.
Was that in Korea?
Yeah, it was in Korea.
Always in Korea. So he's had a lot of piano teachers in Korea. So even though my piano playing, he says, was mostly fingery, I had learned all kinds of so-called traditional piano playing from all the different teachers. Relax, overusing the upper arm, overusing the wrist, I guess breaking it, finger tension and finger intensity, maybe that's isolation, or kind very, very fingery, etc. In retrospect, I always said a kind of pain and tension. However, I had never considered those problems as a big issue until I got severe pain in my wrist. And that's what very often happens, you know, we're in a world where we figure that what's happening is inevitable. And I'm doing a short talk in a music medicine meeting, and my subject is, are musicians' injuries inevitable? And we know that they're not, unless you do certain things consistently, you know, and sometimes it's not even, you could have learned something, and my subject is, are musicians' injuries inevitable? And we know that they're not, unless you do certain things consistently, you know, and sometimes it's not even, you could have learned something, and left even the teacher, went to another teacher, it's still there, and you don't know what's there, you don't know what you put in exactly, you don't know what's right, you don't know what's wrong. So the pain started around 3 years ago, and I had to take a break for 6 months, and it was really severe. I usually had pain. Did you go to doctors also?
Yeah, I went to doctors, yeah, I also got, as I told you, it's acupuncture here.
Acupuncture. Well, acupuncture is great, but it doesn't make the pain go away if you have a broken wrist. You know?
It leaves, but it never, I mean, remove my pains and also.
It did not remove the pain, yeah. Especially when I had to play lots of chords and octaves and practice like 8, 9 hours. A day to prepare concerts and lessons in the conservatory. So that shows, you know, how committed he is. Even though it was getting better after the long break, I still had sporadic pain, and then I realized that something is wrong with my piano playing. You know, we don't think something is wrong with the piano playing, we think something is wrong with the weather very often. We don't know what it is, but it's not the piano playing, you know, for sure playing. You know, we don't think something is wrong with the piano playing, we think something is wrong with the weather very often. We don't know what it is, but it's not the piano playing, you know? For sure, I studied with those famous teachers in those famous conservatories. How could anything be wrong? Furthermore, I was always dissatisfied with my technique, which sometimes limited my repertoire. No pain, no fatigue, nothing, just feeling limited. Furthermore, I was always dissatisfied with my technique, which sometimes limited my repertoire. No pain, no fatigue, nothing, just feeling limited. Already is a sign that something better, you need something better to open up the possibilities, but we think that something's up. All this thought led me to look for better technique and eventually to here, to the Talmud technique. This is also, you went to the website?
Yes, I went to the website, I saw some YouTube videos, and then well, luckily I found some blogs in German, which was Kenji's blog, and I just wrote email to him.
Right, so we found one of our teacher, Kenji, Mariko's son, who worked with me for, you know, for a whole bunch of years, but has been in Germany for a long time. But he knows enough to make some changes. So he couldn't really work, when he worked with Kenji, he was still performing, he was still preparing, auditioning, so Kenji could touch on some things, but, you know, couldn't do more than that. And then, luckily, I came to Istanbul because of Darren to give a workshop, and Kenji and he came. And I gave him a couple of lessons, and he decided to come to New York. He felt a big difference, And he decided he'll come to me. People are sometimes crazy like that, but it's a change. It's a change of life. This is how sometimes, you know, you see something and you say, okay, I'm just going to do it. Unfortunately, he has to leave again because of visa, but hopefully he'll be able to. I'm just going to do it. Unfortunately, he has to leave again because of visa, but hopefully he'll be able to come back. Unfortunately, he has to leave again because of visa, but hopefully he'll be able to come back. So, you know, we went back to rotation and doing rotation in a much deeper way, you know, in a much deeper way. And what I wrote down, his wrist was too low, the nail joint, fifth finger and the third finger were broken, so you can talk all you want about being, you know, connected, but if something in the finger is not connected, something is buckling in, the finger and the third finger were broken, so you can talk all you want about being, you know, connected, but if something in the finger is not connected, something is buckling in. Sometimes it's also up here. Did you have it here also? You know, the top, yeah, somehow it's not here, but I remember sometimes these knuckles go down. This ones. You know, they go, that's a collapse, what we call a collapse, you know. But then people hold up, so you don't hold up. If you just look at your hand, you know, the hand has a certain shape, and you have bones here. And those bones should not be moving. You know, when we move around, we don't move those bones. Only when we are taught to play the piano or string instruments or whichever, we're taught to drop the wrist and curl the fingers, which is crazy because no one can live like that or function. And then people say, from all that is happening here, it's time after time, they get such injuries and pain, they cannot do much in everyday life. That's how it works, because we do things that we could never, ever survive in everyday life. The hand has to be like that, and so on and so forth. So it was still fingery. We added some finger action at one point, it got to fingery. When he went so then the details came out. When he went, already he was better, right? You know, he felt better, but there were still symptoms. I can't remember if it was fatigue or...
Sometimes I just also
upper arm. The upper arm was still part of it, both of you. You know, the upper arm was still part of the action. How to get this free and to know what is the role. The upper arm, the parts that don't move, have a role. The role is to move along with whatever the active parts are doing. And to be there, the body has to be there, so this is connected and always feels, no matter where you are on the keyboard, the same. We don't restrict the upper arm, but I think that you went also when there was up and down or something.
Yes.
I watch people like a hawk, you know, because if they come from a certain background, you say go to the piano, and it's already off because there was something like that already, sometimes very small. The upper arm is lifting because that's the habit. And then you go like that, and you bring that, and I say, just keep that where it is. And wow, that's like a new experience. Never felt that, because underneath everything that you're doing, the upper arm is involved. And that doesn't work in anything in life, and certainly not in instrumental play. Anything that I'm telling you here, that's in a complicated way, but it's true of everything that we do in everyday life. If you reach from the upper arm, we will not survive very well. The single rotations were also stopped, and that can happen because the teacher, you know, when you show single rotations, sometimes people don't complete. You know, the single rotation is you playing, and then the continuation takes you to the next note. But sometimes people go and they go immediately to the continuation, they bypass the moment of feeling that you're really playing the key. So we stop them. So in the training, sometimes in single rotation, we say, play down, then do this. In other words, whatever you're going, playing and life, and certainly not in instrumental play. Anything that I'm telling, underneath everything that you're doing, the upper arm is involved. And that doesn't work in anything in life, and certainly not in instrumental play. Anything that I'm telling you here, that's in a complicated way, but it's true of everything that we do in everyday life. If you reach from the upper arm, we will not survive very well. The single rotations were also stopped, and that can happen because the teacher, you know, when you show single rotations, sometimes people don't complete. You know, the single rotation is you playing, and then the continuation takes you to the next note. But sometimes people go and they go immediately to the continuation, they bypass the moment of feeling that you're really playing the key. So we stop them. So in the training, sometimes in the single rotation, we say, play down, then do this. In other words, whatever you're going, just to feel the difference between the playing and the next repertory motion, going to the next note. But sometimes either the teacher forgets or there isn't a chance to do it. The single rotations are still stopped underneath when people go faster. That's what happened also with you. And that stops speed and that stops freedom. So, so we have to be very aware again in the learning process that things like that can happen. That people are stuck on a good step, but that's not the final step. We have to go to those final steps when the person is ready. He was ready for single rotations, not to stop. Then we worked on minimizing the rotation, adding a little bit of shaping. The left hand needed to get more over the fourth finger as often, the arm stays like that. That's a common thing. A little bit of shaping. The left hand needed to get more over the fourth finger as often, the arm stays like that. That's a common thing. I don't know, is there anything else that is interesting that I'm missing, Gene?
Also, at some point, I just felt like my left hand was worse than my right hand because I got better right hand.
Right, so the left hand, which was the good hand, right?
Yes.
It started as the good hand, that's what happens. The right hand got to be so good, the bad hand got to be so good, that the left hand was not quite up to it in skills. It's not that something was terribly wrong, but it wasn't as good. That's where we want people to be. You kind of, it's from the apple in the Garden of Eden. Your eyes are open to something new you never had. And oh my God, there's all kinds of other, this can really feel good. That whatever felt good before because it wasn't so terrible, suddenly it's not so good. So we've been working on the left hand, and it's very important, by the way, to, even when things are good, to make sure that the left hand has passages as we work on the right hand. But there was still a tightness in the shoulder and a weak fourth finger at the joint compared to, I don't know what we did. We still went back and forth, which is also very common, from getting the arm really involved and alive, but at some point, sometimes the fingers go dead. And then you add some fingers, and then it gets to fingering in very small ways. So, right, that's what happened. So I don't go back and forth because that's, it's years of being there, but really give them the sense of exactly, once the forearm is free, exactly the sense of how it feels together when the fingers just feel a little bit of the aliveness. It almost doesn't feel like they're moving, they just, it's like the forearm, but they're not dead, like that on the keys. They're not dead on the keys, and they're not doing, I said you can rotate and still isolate because the fingers move too much. So it's still getting the sense that the forearm is moving, but the fingers actually make it possible to feel whole when they're responding. You can call it a response, you can call it a little bit of an aliveness. It's got to feel all the way to here. And we learn backwards because it really should be, the thing is, I always say, when you lift your leg, the body responds, right, to the movement, but you're doing it through lifting your leg and going forward. That's what happens here, the legs are the fingers, but with the way we have to go backwards, it's like the body is lifting the legs. And the body doesn't lift the legs, it's a step, it's a long step in getting a frozen forearm that is essential to having a good technique and a healthy technique and a lifelong healthy technique that can do all the things that you want. So we have to go, it's what Talman called the tail wagging the dog, rather than the dog wagging the tail. I thought it was a good, analogy. But it's, I find that for the rest of life, because of all the training, I always have to feel, I know that I'm moving the fingers, but I'm always very aware, and I love that feeling of being perfectly connected. Because God forbid, that would be lost. And it isn't, but it's everybody can have their way of thinking. But what it is in the end, it can't be too much in one and too little of the other. It has to be what it has to be, you know, that it's a combination. So we want a little bit back and forth, and now it's okay? Okay. So let's go to the questions.
So first, how should we?
Oh, and one of the things that you said, that you know, working on shaping, that the unintuitive shaping, the one that you would never think is the one that is working here, was the one that made the passage work. You know, so there is a lot that is what, at the beginning, we think we're such creatures of intuition, but the intuition, I think throughout life, and definitely in playing the piano, is not always the right one. Some of it can be very right, and I would say, if we naturally feel certain things and nobody touches it and gives bad suggestions, there's a good chance that it will stay that way. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But actually, when you really get into the knowledge of what really goes on underneath, you know, this whole thing, you know, is very often the body has to learn to do, and then it feels very natural. But it feels, I think the unnatural is more, it's unfamiliar, you know. It's very often the body has to learn to do, and then it feels very natural. But it feels, I think the unnatural is more, it's unfamiliar. It's very unfamiliar. Okay, so let's go, do you want to, the Bach, should we start with the Bach? So this is the fifth partita, and there's some passage. So this is how the lesson goes. You know, basically what I'm doing here is how the lesson goes. The student, we are past the, I would say, the difficult era. And it's more, but all the time working with both of them and other people, I'm aware of what happened, what was, it's like somebody who's been ill and they're very well and everything, but they have to make sure that they eat the right things and they sleep enough and all of that to keep things healthy. Now, does that mean that they'll always have to do that? It becomes, again, very much second nature, but I tell people, you know, just keep in mind, especially the things that make it right for you, the strong things, I'm always keeping in mind. I mean, I'm more than ever before somehow. I take things for granted, but not as for granted as I used to. Maybe because I have to analyze so much and show so much and go to such details, you know, more and more and more, that there's a lot that stays all the time in the brain. There's always a sense of alertness, or put it this way, of observing, of being aware. Not necessarily to do anything big or whatever like that. Let's take it.
So the first sketch is here. We measure 26. The finger here in the left hand is not clear.
26. Okay.
There it is.
Okay. See, I thought it was this.
Oh,
You-
this one, yeah. I have.
Oh, this one also?
Yeah.
I thought that you did the Hugo on me. You gave me all the wrong, all the wrong measures. Okay.
Do I have to use two? Then I have to go here.
So what you're asking? No, you can go to 3, 4, 5.
Then I think I do.
Oh, I see. So what you're saying? I'm sorry. That's what you're doing, but you
Yes.
don't feel quite right. Are you doing what I'm doing? I mean, you have the shaping written and it's correct. Okay, so going, this is what doesn't feel right.
Yeah, kind of right. It's stuck there between the black keys here.
It's again, feeling stuck in the black keys. Could you do me one thing? You're out here, right?
Yes.
Could you move a little bit in? Moving a little bit into the D, so you're really here. I think that you're a little bit here, and then you have to move in a lot.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
That's what you feel. Okay. So he's here, and then there's a big movement. Why does he have to move in? The fifth finger, the second shortest finger, is going to the F sharp, so other fingers have to go in. But the question is exactly what I was talking about before, and John and Bob and everybody, you know, we all talk about it. When do we start it? He's doing it on these fingers. It feels too much. It doesn't feel right. You know, could you take just those 5 fingers and start with a D close to the blunt keys here? Right, and this is the whole shape. Notice that doesn't end here. It ends here. Right. Does that bother you? No. Okay. By the way, when you do a shape, do the full shape. If the shape doesn't stop, here it doesn't stop on the 5th finger, it really stops on the thumb. Even though it may have nothing to do with what he's asking, I like people to feel the full shape because that's how you begin to learn. Where does it start? Where does it end? And you see that it didn't take care of the whole thing because he needed an in movement. Right there is the whole talk today. He didn't start in enough. How does he know? It's the same thing with the pitch. You know, because when you start here, it doesn't feel quite right. I feel it somewhere here, I don't know why. Like there's a feeling of a pull, you know? But if you start it here, so the question is when to move. This is a good finger to move on, so here you're just shaping over it. There's still what I would call forward, back, but you don't have to think about them. All you have to think is the overshape. So come from a little bit from before. This is the whole talk. All I had to do is show this one example. That's what, you know. Because of that 5th finger, you have to be in. He was in, but not in enough. That's it. And that can keep him, you know, keep a person practicing for years, and the passage will still not feel so good. Because he does know that he has to move another step in. And that's, again and again, why we train and we learn and we have to keep training. Because those details can be in the way of having a free technique. It doesn't feel good here, it doesn't feel good in a few other places. Playing feels better, but not really free enough to forget about it and to think about the music. Okay.
In the next occasion is here. The over.
Хотите научиться петь, восстановить прежний навык или ищете занятия для ребенка? Вам подойдет онлайн-курс «Петь легко» с Мариной Полтевой.
Привет, я Марина Полтева.
My grandfather was the organist in an Italian church. And we shared this epic love for Italian opera and the Beatles. Also, Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody was a big one. Just that opening melody, the way the sections kind of happen seemingly randomly but come together to form this perfect, coherent statement. When I was 4 or 5, when I remember hearing it for the first time, I didn't necessarily identify with the lyrical content, because I hadn't killed a man. But it was electrifying. And it was weirdly familiar. Familiar like those other lyrics that go, he was strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words. They later go on to say, I felt he found my letters and read each one aloud. How does a great song do that? That song came from a poem that Laurie Lieberman wrote on a napkin while she watched Don McLean in concert for the first time. How does a great song lay out your emotional experience as if the songwriter had been eavesdropping on your internal dialogue?
Hello everyone, we are back.
Алло. Алло, пап, привет.
Да, привет.
Ты нормально все, да?
Да.
Вот, что я подумал, ты зайти, может, хочешь, так ты заходи, давай я тебе чаем-то напою. То есть, как это, я просто, у меня тут, понимаешь, не камильфо, как бы, а так-то, как бы, не вопрос, приходи. Да.
Ладно, хорошо. Да, тоже вариант.
Так что смотри сам там, звони как там, в принципе, завтра там.
Я тебе заранее позвоню, чтобы время согласовать. Там договоримся.
Да, так что, где я нахожусь, ты знаешь, наверное, да, где живу?
Да, знаю.
Ну, там, где, короче, центр, короче. Ладно,
Ага.
Сбербанк. Ну вот тогда заходи, тут чай попьем, да что-нибудь так.
Хорошо, ладно.
Ладно. Ага. Ладно.
Все, пока-пока.
Давай, ага, давай, пока. Куда? А что ко мне заходить? Смотри, как ты живешь, нет, ты себе так можешь жить. Нет, ну давай. А, что я хорошо живу? А что, зачем приезжать? Что я плохой, да? Да не вопрос. Вот это и
back with some more piano playing. Today we are going to be looking at something that's going to make you sound probably the most beautiful on the piano. And all you need to know is one simple interval. It's called a major sixth. And it's so pretty, so much fun. I want to show you how it sounds. Okay, so that sounded beautiful. I absolutely love this interval. It's so much fun to play, and I want to show you how you can play this as well. So all you need to know is a major scale to start, and then we'll go from there. So I've been using F major. I'm going to show you what that looks like here. We have F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and F. And what I'm going to do is take my first note and count up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And there is my major sixth interval. It's that easy. So when we have this sixth, we can move this anywhere around the scale and get comfortable with this hand shape, because it is very tricky to keep track of 2 notes at the same time, but it's the same hand shape, right? We can jump around. Let's jump a little farther. Whoa, let's go up here. It's that much fun. Just moving around, keeping that hand shape the same, and you'll be good to go. So now, once you feel comfortable with that, we're going to move into a chord progression with our left hand. And this chord progression
shapes here. So
Okay.
I still would be kind of
So that would be interesting because they
Hello, welcome to Escape the Box Piano. It's Dan here. In this tutorial we're going to look at a reasonably accessible boogie-woogie piece. The piece is actually taken from The Joy of Boogie and Blues. I'll provide a link to that in the description below. This is Boogie number 1. The book is a great book of increasingly difficult boogie and blues pieces. Well worth picking up a copy if you're interested in either of those genres. Let's get going. Okay, here's middle C, and first C and a G twice, and then E flat. Hi, welcome to Escape the Box Piano, Dan here. Individual D. Your thumb is now a white note higher up, it's over D, and we're going to repeat the pattern.
we talked about
Ну зачем? Ну нам вот это есть на самом деле.
and so on.
About it. So I showed him what the shaping is, and he said already, I'm totally frank with you, he said already at the lesson, there's a place here that didn't feel so right. I showed it to him. He's coming back and he's saying, it still doesn't feel right. So we have to see what is, hopefully, there always is an answer, so let's see how you do it.
Все, короче. Думаешь, надо не эту смотреть штуку, а вот эту? Но я не против, в принципе. Вроде как бы родная гугловская штучка. Я просто хотел проверить. А это родная, это самое. Зачем? Это что, юмор такой, что ли? Нет, наоборот. Я не знаю, зачем он это. Нет, это просто так было. Думаю, сделано просто так было специально, думаю, прикольно, сделано. А, я что ли такой? Что это такое? Ух ты! Нет. Нет, наоборот. Как это делается? Так это и есть то же самое. Ну ладно. А, ну нет, надо. Нет, надо. Ладно. наоборот. Да нет, про тебя просто плохо говорить уже не надо. Ты раньше все это делал. А, ну нет, наоборот. Нет, это наоборот. Да нет, наоборот. Блять, не выйти никогда не получится. Что моя проблема? Слишком умен, что ли, наоборот. Естественно, пропорционально. Пропорционально, естественно. Ну вот это и было оно самое, да, что ты бревнами просто все делаешь, бревна.